Amanda Walsh stood in the center of the colony square watching her husband Jake Bennett shake hands with the Buffalo ranchers. The autumn festival lights cast dancing shadows across the crowd of colonists who had gathered to witness what Jake called his best trade deal ever. Amanda felt her stomach twist as she realized what was happening. Jake turned to face the crowd with a wide grin on his weathered face. He wore his colonial marine uniform with all the medals and ribbons he had earned during the frontier wars. The crowd respected him as a war hero and successful commander. They did not know about his gambling debts or his drinking problem. "Friends and neighbors," Jake announced in his booming voice. "Today I make a trade that will feed our families through the harsh winter months ahead. 3 months of premium buffalo meat in exchange for something that has no value to me anymore." Amanda's hands began to shake. She knew Jake had been angry about her inability to have children. The radiation exposure during her research mission to the Crystal Caves had damaged her reproductive system 5 years ago. Jake had grown cold and distant ever since the doctors confirmed she could never bear children. "My wife Amanda cannot give me sons to carry on the Bennett family name," Jake continued. "She spends her time playing with plants and rocks instead of taking care of a proper home. What good is a woman who cannot fulfill her basic purpose?" The crowd murmured among themselves. Some nodded in agreement while others looked uncomfortable. Amanda saw her research partner Helen Carter push through the crowd toward her. Helen's face showed anger and disbelief. "So I trade her to the Williamson Ranch," Jake said, pointing toward 3 men in leather coats and wide-brimmed hats. "They need someone to help with their scientific experiments on buffalo breeding. Amanda can use her education for something useful instead of wasting time on worthless research projects." Amanda felt the world spinning around her. The colonists stared at her with mixtures of pity and judgment. She had dedicated her life to understanding the alien ecosystem of their planet, Kepler 442b. Her work had helped establish sustainable farming methods that kept the colony fed. She had discovered which native plants were safe to eat and which ones were poisonous. She had created the water purification systems that kept disease from spreading through their settlement. None of that mattered to Jake anymore. All he cared about was having sons to inherit his military rank and property. The colonial law allowed men to trade wives like property if they could prove the marriage was not producing children. It was a cruel law that reflected how harsh frontier life had made their society. Tom Williamson stepped forward to accept the trade. He was a big man with calloused hands and a scraggly beard. His ranch lay 50 miles north of the main settlement in dangerous territory where wild creatures roamed. Few people ventured that far from the safety of the colonial defenses. "We appreciate the trade, Commander Bennett," Tom said. "Amanda will help us understand how to improve our herds using scientific methods. We have been having problems with disease and poor breeding results." Amanda finally found her voice. "I am not property to be traded away," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I am a human being with rights and dignity." Jake laughed harshly. "You lost your rights when you failed in your duty as a wife. The law is clear about worthless women who cannot bear children. You should be grateful the Williamsons are willing to take you." Helen Carter reached Amanda's side and grabbed her arm. "This is barbaric," Helen said to the crowd. "Amanda Walsh is one of the most brilliant scientists in the colony. Her research has saved countless lives and improved all our living conditions." "Science won't give me grandsons to inherit my legacy," Jake replied. "A man needs sons to carry on his bloodline. What is the point of a woman who cannot provide that basic service?" Several men in the crowd nodded in agreement. The frontier had made them value survival and reproduction above education and individual achievement. They saw women primarily as baby makers and homemakers rather than equal partners. Amanda felt tears threatening to spill from her eyes, but she refused to give Jake the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She had always known he was a simple man who valued traditional roles. She had hoped their love would be enough to overcome his disappointment about children. She had been wrong. The trade ceremony continued with formal papers being signed and witnessed. Amanda watched in numb shock as her life was handed over to strangers. She owned nothing except her scientific equipment and research notes. Everything else belonged to Jake under colonial marriage law. Helen helped Amanda gather her belongings from the house she had shared with Jake for 7 years. Her laboratory equipment filled several crates along with her detailed notes about the planet's ecosystem. She had spent countless hours studying the strange crystalline formations that dotted the landscape and the unusual energy readings they produced. "You don't have to go with them," Helen whispered as they packed. "We can fight this in the colonial courts." Amanda shook her head. "The law supports Jake's rights as my husband. Besides, I want to leave this place. I never want to see his face again or hear his voice." As the sun set over the colony, Amanda climbed onto the Williamson wagon with her crates of equipment. The Buffalo ranchers seemed decent enough men who needed her scientific knowledge to improve their livestock operations. It was not the life she had planned, but it was better than staying married to Jake. The wagon rolled away from the settlement toward the northern wilderness. Amanda looked back once at the lights of the colony growing smaller in the distance. She did not know that this humiliating trade would lead to the greatest adventure of her life. She did not know that the crystal formations she had been studying contained secrets that would change the fate of humanity forever. Tom Williamson guided the wagon along the rough trail through alien grasslands under a sky filled with 3 moons. "We heard about your work with the crystal caves," he said. "There are more formations near our ranch that might interest you. Strange things happen around them sometimes." Amanda nodded but said nothing. She was thinking about the energy readings she had detected during her previous expeditions. There was something important hidden in those crystal structures, something that called to her in ways she did not yet understand. The radiation that had made her infertile had also changed her, in other ways that she was only beginning to discover. The Williamson Ranch sat in a valley surrounded by towering crystal formations that caught the light of 3 moons and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the grasslands. Amanda had never seen so many of the alien structures in one place. Her scientific instruments detected massive energy readings coming from deep within the crystalline matrix. Tom Williamson and his brothers Pete and Sam were kind men who treated Amanda with respect. They provided her with a comfortable cabin and gave her freedom to pursue her research in exchange for helping them understand their buffalo herds. The alien grass that grew near the crystals seemed to make the animals stronger and healthier, but sometimes the buffalo acted strangely, as if they could sense things humans could not perceive. Amanda spent her days studying the crystal formations, and her nights analyzing the data she collected. The energy patterns were unlike anything in human science. The crystals seemed to pulse with their own rhythm as if they were alive. Sometimes she thought she could hear whispers coming from deep within the glowing structures. 3 weeks after arriving at the ranch, Amanda made a discovery that changed everything. While taking readings near the largest crystal formation, she noticed her equipment was picking up organized signals rather than random energy emissions. The patterns looked almost like communication attempts from an unknown intelligence. She was adjusting her scanner settings when the ground began to shake. A section of the crystal wall started to crack and split apart. Amanda backed away quickly, but not quickly enough to avoid the shower of crystal fragments that rained down around her. One sharp piece cut across her forehead, leaving a thin line of blood. That was when she saw the creature trapped beneath the fallen crystal debris. It looked like a horse, but was twice the size of any earth animal. Its coat shimmered with colors that seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight. A mane of pure energy floated around its head, moving in patterns that defied gravity. The creature's eyes held intelligence and wisdom that took Amanda's breath away. The magnificent being was pinned under a massive crystal boulder. It made no sound, but Amanda could feel its pain and fear as if the emotions were her own. Without thinking, she ran forward and placed her hands on the crystal. The moment her skin touched the alien mineral, she felt a surge of power flow through her body. The crystal began to dissolve under her touch. Amanda watched in amazement as the solid matter transformed into harmless dust that blew away on the wind. The process should have been impossible according to every law of physics she had studied. Yet somehow her contact with the crystal had triggered a molecular breakdown that freed the trapped creature. The horse-like being rose to its feet with fluid grace. It stood nearly 8 feet tall at the shoulder with legs that seemed too delicate to support its massive frame. When it moved, Amanda noticed it left no hoofprints in the soil. The creature appeared to float just above the ground as if gravity had little effect on its body. Amanda stepped back, expecting the alien animal to flee into the wilderness. Instead, it approached her slowly, with its head lowered in what looked like a gesture of gratitude. When it was close enough to touch, Amanda reached out her hand. The creature's muzzle felt warm and solid, but also seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. Images flooded into Amanda's mind the moment their skin made contact. She saw vast cities that existed in multiple dimensions at once. She witnessed battles fought across the fabric of space and time itself. She experienced the joy of running through quantum fields where thought became reality and dreams took physical form. The visions revealed that the creature belonged to a race called the Ashtahe. They were ancient beings who had mastered the ability to manipulate matter and energy through quantum consciousness. They existed partly in normal space and partly in parallel dimensions that overlapped with physical reality. Amanda learned that the young Ashtahe she had rescued was named Starweaver. It had been exploring the crystal formations when the accident trapped it between dimensions. The crystals were actually quantum anchor points that the Ashtahe used to travel between realities. Humans had unknowingly built their colony near one of the most important dimensional gateways in this sector of space. Starweaver showed Amanda how the radiation exposure that had made her infertile had also changed her genetic structure in unexpected ways. The quantum energy had bonded with her DNA, creating hybrid cells that could interface directly with Ashtahe technology and consciousness. She was becoming something new, part human and part quantum being. The revelation explained why she could dissolve the crystal with her touch. Her altered physiology allowed her to manipulate matter at the molecular level by accessing quantum fields that normal humans could not perceive. It also explained the whispers she had been hearing from the crystals. They were actually communications from the Ashtahe dimension bleeding through into normal space. Starweaver communicated that its people had been watching human colonization with growing concern. A terrible threat was approaching from the dark spaces between galaxies. Ancient enemies called void devourers were consuming entire star systems by unraveling the quantum foundations of reality itself. The Ashtahe had been fighting this menace for thousands of years, but they were losing the war. Amanda felt a chill of fear as Starweaver shared images of the devourers. They appeared as tears in space-time itself, consuming everything they touched and leaving empty nothingness behind. Planets, stars, and entire civilizations simply ceased to exist when the devourers passed through their region of space. The young Ashtahe explained that the quantum crystals on Kepler 442b were part of a defensive network designed to detect and repel devourer attacks. However, the network required conscious beings who could bridge the gap between normal matter and quantum fields. Humans, with their natural adaptability and scientific knowledge, might be the key to stopping the cosmic threat. Starweaver told Amanda that she needed to meet with Windrunner of the Star Paths, the greatest of the Ashtahe Horse Lords. He commanded fleets of living ships that sailed between dimensions and led armies of quantum warriors. Only he had the power and authority to forge an alliance between humans and Ashtahe. As the alien sunset painted the crystal formations in shades of gold, and Crimson Starweaver prepared to return to its own dimension. Before departing, it touched Amanda's forehead with its muzzle. She felt new knowledge downloading into her mind, the location of dimensional gateways, the basics of quantum manipulation, and most importantly, the coordinates where she could find Windrunner. Amanda watched Starweaver fade from normal space as it phased back into the Ashtahe dimension. She stood alone among the glowing crystals, holding secrets that could determine the fate of humanity. The woman who had been traded away, like a piece of property, now possessed knowledge that made her the most important human in the galaxy. Amanda stood before the largest crystal formation on the ranch, holding the quantum resonator that Starweaver had shown her how to construct. The device looked simple, just a piece of crystal shaped into a spiral pattern and wrapped with copper wire from her laboratory equipment. However, when activated, it would open a doorway between dimensions that would allow her to enter the Ashtahe realm. She had spent 2 weeks preparing for this journey. The Williamson brothers thought she was conducting routine geological surveys, but Amanda was actually learning to control her quantum abilities. She could now dissolve crystal matter with a thought and sense energy patterns that were invisible to normal human perception. The hardest part was leaving behind everything familiar. Once she stepped through the dimensional gateway, there would be no guarantee she could return to normal space. The Ashtahai existed in a realm where the laws of physics worked differently. Time moved in strange patterns, and space folded back on itself in ways that human minds struggled to comprehend. Amanda activated the resonator and watched as the crystal wall began to shimmer like water. Reality bent and twisted around the focal point until a doorway opened into what looked like an endless field of swirling stars. She took a deep breath and stepped through the portal into the quantum realm. The transition felt like diving into warm honey that sparkled with its own inner light. Amanda's body tingled as quantum energy flowed through every cell, transforming her from a purely physical being into something that existed in multiple states simultaneously. She could see her hands becoming translucent as she adapted to the new environment. When the sensation faded, Amanda found herself standing on a plain of crystalline grass under a sky filled with dancing auroras. The landscape stretched to the horizon in all directions, painted in colors that had no names in human language. In the distance, she could see structures that defied geometry, buildings that spiraled upward through multiple dimensions and bridges that connected floating islands of solid light. Magnificent creatures grazed across the quantum plains. Amanda recognized them as Ashtahai, but these beings were far larger and more majestic than young Starweaver. Their coats reflected the aurora patterns overhead, and their manes flowed like liquid starlight. Some had wings of pure energy that allowed them to soar between the floating islands. The greatest of these beings approached Amanda with the fluid grace of a living constellation. Windrunner of the Starpath stood 12 feet tall with a coat that contained the deep darkness of space, dotted with points of brilliant light. His mane moved in patterns that reminded Amanda of solar flares dancing around a star. When he spoke, his voice resonated through quantum fields directly into her consciousness. "Welcome, Amanda Walsh, daughter of Earth and child of two realities," Windrunner said. "Starweaver has told me of your courage in freeing him from the crystal trap. You have proven that humans possess the adaptability we hope to find." Amanda bowed her head respectfully. Being in Windrunner's presence felt like standing next to a star, overwhelming but not dangerous. The Horse Lord radiated power and wisdom accumulated over thousands of years of existence across multiple dimensions. "Great Lord," Amanda replied, "I have come seeking knowledge about the threat you call Void Devourers. My people know nothing of this danger, but we want to help defend our galaxy." Windrunner's eyes glowed brighter as he shared visions of the cosmic menace approaching their region of space. Amanda saw entire solar systems consumed by entities that existed as tears in reality itself. The Devourers moved through space like a plague of nothingness, destroying everything in their path. "The Devourers are older than most civilizations," Windrunner explained. "They exist in the spaces between realities, feeding on the quantum foundations that hold matter and energy together. When they consume a star system, nothing remains, not even empty space. That region of the universe simply ceases to exist." Amanda felt terror growing in her chest as she understood the magnitude of the threat. Earth's weapons would be useless against enemies that existed outside normal physics. Humanity's greatest warships would simply pass through the Devourers without causing any damage. "How do you fight something that cannot be touched?" Amanda asked. Windrunner showed her images of Ashtahai warriors riding ships that sailed between dimensions. The vessels looked alive with hulls that pulsed like heartbeats and sails made of crystallized quantum fields. Weapon systems channeled pure consciousness into beams that could disrupt the Devourer's connection to reality. "We fight them by existing in multiple realities simultaneously," Windrunner said. "The Devourers can only consume what exists entirely in normal space. Beings who bridge quantum realms are harder for them to digest. However, our numbers grow smaller with each battle while their hunger only increases." Amanda studied the tactical displays that Windrunner projected into her mind. The Ashtahai had been retreating for centuries, unable to match the Devourer's endless advance. They needed allies who could adapt their quantum technology to work with more conventional weapons and strategies. "What makes you think humans can help?" Amanda asked. "We barely understand our own technology, let alone quantum physics." Windrunner's expression brightened with something that might have been hope. Humans possess something we have lost over our long existence, the ability to grow and change rapidly. You adapt to new situations faster than any species we have encountered. Given quantum abilities, you might develop fighting methods we cannot imagine. The Horse Lord led Amanda to a crystalline palace that floated above the quantum planes. Inside, she found chambers filled with Ashtahai technology that looked more like art than machinery. Living computers grew like gardens in rooms where walls showed views of distant galaxies. Weapons that responded to thoughts rather than triggers waited in armories that existed in folded space. The radiation that damaged your reproductive system also prepared you to interface with our technology, Windrunner explained. You can learn to command our ships and weapons as if they were extensions of your own body. With training, you could become a bridge between our peoples. Amanda spent what felt like days in the quantum realm learning from Windrunner, though time moved differently there. She discovered she could control Ashtahai computers with her thoughts and pilot their dimensional ships through pure intention. The quantum armor they provided responded to her emotions becoming stronger when she felt protective of others. Most importantly, Windrunner taught her how to exist in quantum superposition, being in multiple realities at once. This ability made her almost impossible for devourers to consume, since they could never capture all versions of her simultaneously. It also allowed her to coordinate attacks across different dimensions. You must return to your people and warn them of what approaches, Windrunner said as Amanda's training reached its conclusion. The Devourers will reach human space within 1 of your years. We will support any alliance you can arrange, but the final choice belongs to humanity. Amanda felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was just a disgraced scientist who had been traded away by her husband. Now the fate of 2 civilizations might depend on her ability to convince human leaders to accept help from alien beings most humans had never seen. Windrunner touched his muzzle to Amanda's forehead, sharing one final gift, a quantum beacon that would allow her to contact the Ashtahai across any distance. The device looked like a simple crystal pendant, but it contained enough computational power to run a small starship. Remember, Windrunner said as Amanda prepared to return to normal space. You are no longer just human or just Ashtahai. You have become something new, a bridge between realities. Use that gift to save both our peoples. Amanda emerged from the quantum realm wearing bioarmor that shifted between solid matter and pure energy depending on her needs. The Ashtahai technology had bonded with her altered DNA, creating a symbiotic relationship that enhanced both her human intellect and her quantum abilities. She no longer looked like the woman Jake Bennett had traded away 3 months earlier. Her first priority was reaching the Colonial Authority headquarters on Mars to warn them about the approaching void devourers. However, when Amanda tried to book passage on a civilian transport, the shipping company refused her request. Her identification had been flagged by Jake, who claimed she was mentally unstable and dangerous to other passengers. Amanda realized she would need to find another way to contact human leadership. She used her quantum beacon to call Starweaver, who arrived piloting a small dimensional ship that looked like a crystalline bird with wings of solid light. The vessel could phase between normal space and quantum realms, making it invisible to human detection systems. They traveled toward the outer colonies where Amanda hoped to find someone in authority who would listen to her warnings. During the journey, Starweaver taught her more about void devourer behavior and the signs that indicated their approach. The entities always sent scout probes ahead of their main force to identify the quantum signatures of populated star systems. Amanda's worst fears were confirmed when they reached the mining colony on Titan Base. The settlement had gone completely silent 3 days earlier, with all communications cut off. When their ship dropped out of quantum space, Amanda saw why. A section of the asteroid belt had simply vanished, leaving empty space where billions of tons of rock had once existed. The Devourers have found human space, Starweaver confirmed. This was just a scout probe testing your defenses. The main swarm will follow soon. Amanda watched in horror as more chunks of the asteroid field winked out of existence. The Devourers consumed matter by unraveling its quantum foundations until nothing remained, not even atoms or energy. It was destruction on a level that human science could barely comprehend. They arrived at the Colonial Defense Fleet headquarters on Europa to find the military in complete chaos. Admiral Patricia Stone was trying to coordinate responses to similar attacks throughout the outer colonies. Entire mining stations had vanished overnight along with their populations. Warships sent to investigate simply disappeared when they got too close to the affected areas. Amanda requested an immediate meeting with Admiral Stone, but was arrested by security forces the moment she identified herself. Jake had filed charges, claiming she had stolen military equipment and was collaborating with hostile alien forces. The guards locked her in a detention cell while they verified her identity and criminal status. From her cell, Amanda could hear emergency broadcasts describing more devourer attacks. The entities were systematically consuming human infrastructure, starting with the most isolated outposts and working their way toward the core worlds. Military responses proved completely ineffective since conventional weapons could not affect beings that existed outside normal physics. Admiral Stone finally came to see Amanda after 12 hours of detention. The Admiral was a tough woman in her 60s who had fought in every major conflict of the past 30 years. She looked exhausted and desperate as reports of new losses continued arriving every few minutes. Commander Bennett claims you have suffered a mental breakdown and are spreading panic with stories about invisible alien attackers, Admiral Stone said. However, our scientists cannot explain what is destroying our colonies. Nothing in our experience matches the pattern of destruction we are seeing. Amanda activated her quantum beacon to contact Starweaver. The young Ashtahai materialized in the detention cell, causing the guards to reach for their weapons. However, their bullets passed harmlessly through his quantum-shifted form without causing any damage. Admiral Stone, Amanda said calmly. Meet Starweaver of the Ashtahai. His people have been fighting the Void Devourers for thousands of years. They want to help humanity survive what is coming. The Admiral stared in amazement as Starweaver shared visions of the cosmic threat directly into her mind. She saw the true scale of the Devourer swarm, millions of entities consuming their way across the galaxy like a plague of nothingness. She also saw Ashtahai warriors fighting desperate battles to slow the advance. How long do we have? Admiral Stone asked. After absorbing the terrifying knowledge, 6 months before the main swarm reaches Earth, Amanda replied. However, they will consume all the outer colonies long before then. We need to evacuate everyone to the core worlds and prepare defenses that can actually hurt these things. Admiral, Stone ordered Amanda's immediate release and gave her full access to military resources. However, when she tried to contact Earth's government, she discovered that Jake had used his political connections to block her communications. He was spreading rumors that Amanda had been brainwashed by aliens and was trying to start a war with peaceful extraterrestrial visitors. My ex-husband is an idiot, but he has friends in high places, Amanda explained to Admiral Stone. He thinks I am trying to get revenge for the divorce by embarrassing him publicly. The Admiral assigned Dr. Marcus Field and his research team to work with Amanda on developing anti-devourer weapons. Dr. Field was a quantum physicist who had been studying theoretical ways to disrupt space-time. He was fascinated by Amanda's descriptions of Ashtahai technology and eager to adapt their methods for human use. Meanwhile, Jake Bennett arrived at Europa demanding custody of Amanda. He brought a court order claiming she was mentally incompetent and needed psychiatric treatment. Jake had convinced the judges that Amanda's stories about alien alliances were proof of a complete psychological breakdown caused by their divorce. I am trying to save humanity from extinction, Amanda told Jake when he confronted her in the research laboratory. Your petty jealousy is interfering with work that could prevent the deaths of billions of people. Jake laughed bitterly. You were always too good for me, weren't you, Amanda? Now you expect me to believe that aliens chose you to be their special human representative. It is pathetic how far you will go for attention. Amanda felt her quantum abilities responding to her anger. The laboratory equipment began humming with energy as her emotional state affected nearby technology. Dr. Field and his team stepped back in amazement as computer screens flickered with alien symbols and test instruments began displaying impossible readings. I never wanted to be special, Jake, Amanda said as her bio-armor became visible, shifting from translucent to solid matter. I just wanted to be valued for who I was instead of what I could not give you. Now I have responsibilities that make your opinion irrelevant." Jake stared in shock as Amanda demonstrated her quantum manipulation abilities by dissolving a metal desk with her touch. The man who had traded her away for buffalo meat realized he had made the biggest mistake of his life. The worthless woman he had discarded was becoming something beyond his ability to understand or control. Admiral Stone used her authority to have Jake escorted off the station and his court orders suspended under military emergency powers. However, Amanda knew her ex-husband would continue causing problems unless she could prove the reality of the Devourer threat to Earth's civilian government. As if summoned by her thoughts, the quantum beacon activated with an urgent message from Windrunner. The Ashtahai had detected a massive Devourer formation moving toward the Sol system. Earth itself would be under attack within 3 months instead of 6. Humanity was running out of time to prepare for a war unlike anything they had ever faced. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened in the Luna Research Station's main auditorium, with representatives from every human colony world in attendance. Amanda stood before the assembly wearing her Ashtahai bioarmor, which had adapted to project a more formal appearance, suitable for diplomatic proceedings. Behind her, a holographic display showed real-time footage of Devourer attacks consuming the outer mining stations. "Honorable delegates," Amanda began addressing the crowd of skeptical politicians and military leaders. 3 days ago, the colony on Proxima Station simply ceased to exist. 20,000 people and an entire industrial complex vanished without leaving so much as a radio signal. This was not an equipment malfunction or a terrorist attack. This was the work of entities that threaten the survival of all life in our galaxy. Council Chairman Robert Hayes interrupted her presentation. "Dr. Walsh, while we appreciate your scientific expertise, these claims about invisible alien attackers strain credibility. Our intelligence services suggest that rogue artificial intelligence systems might be responsible for these attacks." Amanda activated her quantum beacon to summon Starweaver, who materialized beside her in the auditorium. The young Ashtahai's appearance caused gasps and shouts from the delegates as they witnessed their first contact with an alien intelligence. Security guards reached for their weapons but found their hands passing through empty air when they tried to grab the quantum-shifted being. "This is Starweaver of the Ashtahai," Amanda announced. "His people have been fighting the Void Devourers for millennia. They offer to share their technology and military expertise to help humanity survive what is coming." Starweaver projected images directly into the minds of everyone present, showing them the true scope of the Devourer threat. The delegates watched in horror as entire star systems were consumed by tears in space-time that left nothing but empty void behind. They saw Ashtahai warriors fighting desperate battles with weapons that channeled pure consciousness against enemies that existed outside normal physics. "The Devourers have already consumed 47 human settlements," Starweaver explained through quantum telepathy. "Their advanced scouts are testing your defenses while the main swarm approaches from deep space. You have perhaps 70 days before Earth itself comes under attack." The council chamber erupted in chaos as delegates shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded military action while others called for immediate evacuation of the core worlds. A few accused Amanda of staging an elaborate hoax to gain attention and government funding for her research projects. Admiral Stone stepped forward to support Amanda's presentation. "I have seen the evidence firsthand," the Admiral declared. "Our most advanced weapons cannot even detect these entities, let alone damage them. If we are going to survive this threat, we need the help that the Ashtahai are offering." Dr. Marcus Field added his testimony about the quantum disruption weapons his team had been developing based on Ashtahai technology. "The theoretical framework is sound," he explained. "We can create devices that target the quantum foundations that hold matter together. However, the weapons require psychic interface systems that only beings like Amanda can operate effectively." Chairman Wu. Hayes called for a recess while the council debated their response in private session. Amanda waited in an adjacent chamber with Starweaver and Admiral Stone listening to the heated arguments coming through the walls. Many delegates remained convinced that the whole situation was either a hoax or an alien invasion disguised as a rescue mission. When the session resumed, Chairman Hayes announced the Council's decision. While we cannot ignore the evidence of attacks on our colonies, the United Earth government is not prepared to enter into military alliance with unknown alien forces. We will increase our own defensive preparations and investigate these incidents through conventional means. Amanda felt her heart sink as she realized the politicians were choosing denial over survival. However, Admiral Stone had anticipated this response and activated emergency military protocols that gave her temporary authority over all human defense forces. Under Emergency War Powers Act, I am declaring an immediate state of galactic emergency, Admiral Stone announced. All civilian shipping is suspended, all military forces are mobilized, and all research facilities are placed under direct military mirror control. We will prepare for this threat with or without political approval. The council members protested loudly, but Admiral Stone's legal authority was clear. During times of existential crisis, the military could override civilian government. Decisions if waiting for political consensus would endanger human survival. The Admiral had just committed an act that was technically a military coup, but she was willing to face court-martial later if it meant saving humanity. Over the following weeks, Amanda worked with Dr. Field's expanded research team to develop hybrid human Ashtahai technology. They created quantum disruptor weapons that could target the energy patterns that held devourer entities together. However, the weapons required operators who could exist in quantum superposition to aim and fire them effectively. Windrunner arrived, with a fleet of dimensional ships carrying Ashtahai warriors who volunteered to fight alongside human forces. The alliance was formalized in a ceremony held in the quantum realm, where representatives from both species pledged to defend each other against the cosmic threat. Amanda underwent the Ashtahai bonding ritual that permanently linked her consciousness to the quantum network shared by all their warriors. The process was painful as her human brain adapted to processing information from multiple dimensions simultaneously. When it was complete, she could communicate telepathically with any Ashtahai and coordinate their forces as if they were extensions of her own body. The bonding also enhanced her quantum abilities, allowing her to exist in superposition across dozens of parallel realities at once. She became something new, neither fully human nor fully Ashtahai, but a bridge between both species that could command their combined technologies. Dr. Field successfully created the first working quantum disruptor array using Ashtahai crystals powered by human fusion reactors. The weapon system was mounted on specially modified warships crewed by volunteers who had undergone partial quantum conversion treatments. These hybrid crews could interface with both human and Ashtahai technology, making them uniquely effective against devourer attacks. Jake Bennett arrived at Luna Station demanding to speak with Amanda. He had finally realized the magnitude of what was happening and wanted to apologize for his earlier behavior. However, Amanda had moved far beyond caring about her ex-husband's opinion or approval. "I made a terrible mistake trading you away," Jake admitted when they met in Admiral Stone's office. "I was stupid and selfish, and I am sorry. Please let me help fight these things. I want to do something useful instead of just causing problems." Amanda studied the man she had once loved, seeing genuine remorse in his eyes. "You can serve in the defense fleet under Admiral Stone's command," she decided. "However, you will take orders from officers who understand the real situation. Your pride and prejudices nearly cost humanity its only chance for survival." Jake accepted the assignment, grateful for any opportunity to redeem himself. He was assigned to help construct quantum anchor stations throughout the solar system that would prevent devourers from approaching Earth directly. The work was dangerous since the stations had to be built in areas where space-time was already unstable. As the devourer swarm drew closer, Amanda coordinated the combined human Ashtahai fleet from her command ship that existed simultaneously in normal space and the quantum realm. She had become the supreme commander of forces drawn from two different species united in their determination to survive. The woman who had been considered worthless and traded away for meat now commanded fleets that spanned multiple dimensions and wielded power that could reshape reality itself. However, her greatest challenge lay ahead as the main devourer force finally entered human space, bringing destruction on a scale that no alliance had ever faced. The Devourer swarm arrived in the Alpha Centauri system like a plague of living darkness that consumed light itself. Amanda watched from her quantum command ship as entire planets simply winked out of existence when the entities touched them. The three-star system that had been humanity's first interstellar colony was being systematically erased from reality. Admiral Stone's defense fleet took position around the outer planets, while Windrunner's Ashta-High warriors prepared to engage the enemy across multiple dimensional layers. Amanda existed in quantum superposition, coordinating both forces simultaneously as she monitored the approaching threat through sensors that operated in 17 different realities. Contact in 6 hours, Dr. Field reported from his weapons control station. The quantum disruptor arrays are charged and ready. However, we have never tested them against a full Devourer swarm this size. Amanda could sense the fear radiating from the human crews despite their brave determination to defend Earth. The Ashta-High warriors showed no emotion, but she felt their grim resolve through the quantum network. Both species understood they were fighting for survival against an enemy that had consumed countless civilizations across the galaxy. The first wave of Devourers appeared as tears in space-time itself, moving through normal space like cracks in a broken mirror. They ignored the human warships completely, since conventional matter could not interact with their quantum-shifted forms. However, when they encountered the hybrid human Ashta-High vessels equipped with quantum disruptors, the battle began in earnest. Amanda coordinated the attack from her unique position existing in multiple realities at once. She could see the Devourers as they truly were, parasitic entities that fed on the quantum foundations holding matter and energy together. Through her enhanced perception, she identified weak points in their structure that conventional sensors could never detect. Target the quantum resonance nodes, Amanda transmitted to all ships simultaneously. Focus fire on the energy patterns that look like spiral galaxies. Those are their processing centers. The first salvo of quantum disruptor beams struck the lead Devourers, causing massive explosions of unraveling spacetime. Several entities dissolved completely while others retreated into deeper dimensional layers. However, the victory was temporary, as more tiers in reality opened to disgorge hundreds of additional attackers. Jake Bennett piloted one of the quantum anchor station defense platforms that had been positioned throughout the system. His job was to prevent Devourers from creating permanent portals that would allow their main force to bypass the defense fleet entirely. The work required him to fly his ship dangerously close to the reality tiers while deploying quantum stabilizer probes. Amanda, I have multiple contacts opening portals near Jupiter, Jake reported over the communication network. They are trying to establish a beachhead behind our lines. Amanda split her consciousness, sending part of herself to coordinate Jake's defense mission while maintaining overall command of the battle. She guided his ship through dimensional currents that would have torn apart any normal vessel, while directing Ashta-High reinforcements to support his position. The battle raged across multiple dimensions simultaneously, as Devourers attacked from angles that existed outside normal space. Windrunner led charges of quantum cavalry that rode ships capable of existing in 17 realities at once. Their weapons fired beams of crystallized consciousness that could disrupt Devourer feeding patterns. Dr. Field's research team managed to activate the solar quantum amplifier they had built around the sun's corona. The massive weapon drew power directly from stellar fusion to create disruption fields that covered the entire inner solar system. Any Devourer that tried to approach Earth would have to pass through quantum interference that made it impossible for them to maintain their parasitic feeding behavior. However, the amplifier required constant adjustment to remain effective. Amanda had to maintain a quantum link with the solar array, while simultaneously commanding fleet operations and coordinating dimensional tactics. The mental strain of existing in so many realities at once began to take its toll on her human consciousness. Amanda, your quantum signature is becoming unstable, Starweaver warned her through their telepathic link. You are trying to exist in too many dimensions at once. Your human brain cannot process this much information indefinitely. Amanda knew Starweaver was right, but she could not reduce her involvement without compromising the defense of Earth. The combined fleet needed her unique abilities to target enemies that existed outside normal physics. She was the only being who could bridge human and Ashta-High tactical systems effectively. The turning point came when a massive devourer entity began consuming the quantum anchor station that Jake was defending. The creature was larger than any they had encountered before, a reality tear nearly the size of Earth's moon that devoured everything in its path. Amanda realized this was a command entity that coordinated the smaller devourer's attacks. All ships focus fire on the primary target, Amanda ordered. We need to destroy their command structure before it can establish a permanent portal. Jake volunteered for a suicide mission to plant quantum charges inside the command entity's processing core. His ship was equipped with experimental quantum shielding that might allow him to survive long enough to reach the target. However, Amanda knew the mission was essentially hopeless since the shielding had never been tested against devourer attacks. Jake, do not do this, Amanda pleaded with her ex-husband through their communication link. There has to be another way to stop that thing. Jake's voice came back calm and determined. You gave me a chance to redeem myself, Amanda. This is how I choose to use it. Tell everyone I finally did something worthwhile with my life. Amanda watched in horror as Jake's ship plunged into the reality tear surrounding the command entity. The quantum shielding held for nearly 30 seconds before beginning to collapse under the devourer's feeding assault. In that brief window, Jake managed to deploy his payload directly into the creature's processing center. The resulting explosion tore apart space-time across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The command entity dissolved in a cascade of unraveling reality that took dozens of smaller devourers with it. However, the blast also created quantum shockwaves that threatened to tear apart Amanda's consciousness as she tried to maintain her superposition across 17 realities. Windrunner intervened, at the last moment using his ancient wisdom to stabilize Amanda's quantum signature. Focus on one reality, he commanded her. Let the Ashtahai network handle the dimensional coordination. You must preserve yourself to lead us through what comes next. Amanda reluctantly reduced her consciousness to exist primarily in normal space while maintaining minimal contact with the quantum realm. The reduction in awareness was painful, but it allowed her human brain to process information without being overwhelmed by multidimensional input. The loss of the command entity caused the remaining devourers to retreat into deep space. However, Amanda knew this was only a temporary victory. The entities would regroup and return with different tactics designed to counter the quantum disruptor weapons. Humanity had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. As the combined fleet regrouped around Earth, Amanda mourned Jake's sacrifice while planning for the next phase of the conflict. Her ex-husband had died, proving that even flawed people could rise to greatness when faced with ultimate challenges. His final act of courage had saved both their homeworld and their marriage from ending in bitterness. The battle for Earth's Gate was won, but Amanda realized the real war would be fought not just in space, but in the quantum foundations of reality itself. The Devourers would adapt and return stronger than before. Humanity and the Ashtahai would need to become something new if they hoped to survive what was coming. Amanda stood in the quantum laboratory beneath Luna Station, watching her latest discovery change everything humanity thought they knew about reality. The breakthrough had come while analyzing the quantum signature of Jake's final explosion during the battle for Alpha Centauri. His sacrifice had revealed something remarkable about how Devourers interacted with matter that existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. The Devourers cannot consume anything that maintains quantum superposition across parallel realities, Dr. Field confirmed as he studied the data Amanda had collected. When matter exists in multiple states at once, they cannot establish the stable feeding patterns they need to unravel molecular bonds. The discovery opened up possibilities that neither human science nor Ashtahai wisdom had previously considered. If entire planets could be shifted into quantum superposition, they would become immune to devourer attacks while remaining fully habitable for normal life. The challenge was developing technology that could maintain such massive quantum fields without destabilizing local space-time. Amanda worked with Windrunner to design hybrid quantum generators that combined human fusion reactors with Ashtahai dimensional crystals. The resulting devices were the size of small buildings but capable of creating superposition fields that could protect entire continents. Earth became the testing ground for the first planetary quantum defense system, the Process of shifting Earth into partial superposition took 3 months of careful calibration. Amanda had to exist simultaneously in normal space and 17 parallel realities to monitor the quantum fields and prevent dimensional collapse. The strain was enormous, but the Ashtahai network helped distribute the mental load across dozens of consciousness links. When the conversion was complete, Earth existed in a stable quantum superposition that made it invisible to devourer detection systems while remaining perfectly normal for human habitation. Plants grew, oceans flowed, and people lived their daily lives without noticing any difference. However, the planet had become untouchable by entities that fed on single reality matter. "It works," Admiral Stone reported from the orbital monitoring station. "The quantum field is stable, and our detection systems confirm that Earth no longer registers on conventional sensors. Any devourer probes in the system will find empty space where our planet should be." The success at Earth led to rapid deployment of quantum protection systems throughout human space. Amanda established the Quantum Corps, an elite force of human Ashtahai hybrid warriors trained to install and maintain the massive defense networks. These soldiers could exist in multiple realities, simultaneously making them ideal for working with technology that operated across dimensional boundaries. Jake's sacrifice had inspired thousands of volunteers to undergo the dangerous quantum conversion process that allowed them to interface with hybrid technology. Many did not survive the transformation, as their human brains proved unable to process multidimensional information. However, those who succeeded became something new, beings who transcended the limitations of single-reality existence. Amanda found herself at the center of a technological revolution that was fundamentally changing both human and Ashtahai civilization. The quantum protection systems required constant monitoring by beings who could perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously. This created a new class of hybrid consciousness that belonged fully to neither species, but served as bridges between both. Windrunner formally named Amanda as his chosen successor in the ancient Ashtahai traditions. The ceremony took place in the quantum realm with representatives from 17 different dimensional layers bearing witness. Amanda became the first non-Ashtahai to be granted the title of Starpath Walker, with authority to command their interdimensional fleets. "You have become what we always hoped to achieve," Windrunner told Amanda as she accepted the crystalline crown that marked her new status. "A being who can exist in multiple realities while maintaining connection to a single physical form. You are the bridge between what we were and what we must become." The quantum revolution spread beyond military applications as human scientists learned to apply superposition principles to everyday technology. Transportation systems that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously made interstellar travel nearly instantaneous. Manufacturing processes that operated across parallel realities could create materials with impossible properties. However, the most important change was social rather than technological. The quantum protection systems had proven that cooperation between species could achieve results that neither could accomplish alone. Human adaptability combined with Ashtahai wisdom created solutions that transcended the limitations of both civilizations. Amanda established her headquarters on New Terra, a planet that existed simultaneously in normal space and the Ashtahai quantum realm. The world served as the capital of what was becoming a true interspecies commonwealth, rather than just a military alliance. Human colonists and Ashtahai families lived side by side in cities that defied conventional architecture. Dr. Field was appointed as Amanda's chief science advisor, overseeing research projects that pushed the boundaries of what was possible with quantum technology. His teams developed new applications for superposition fields, including medical treatments that could repair genetic damage by accessing healthy versions of patients from parallel realities. The former mining colonies that had been evacuated during the Devourer attacks were converted into quantum research stations where the most dangerous experiments could be conducted safely. These facilities existed in carefully controlled pocket dimensions that could be severed from normal reality if experiments went wrong. Amanda often thought about how her journey had begun with Jake trading her away for buffalo meat. The woman who had been considered worthless by frontier society now commanded technologies that made her one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. However, power had never been her goal. She simply wanted to protect the people and worlds she cared about. The quantum protection networks proved their worth when Devourer probes returned to human space, 6 months after the battle for Alpha Centauri. The entities found empty regions where thriving star systems should have existed. Unable to detect targets in quantum superposition, the Devourers moved on to easier prey in other parts of the galaxy. News of humanity's success spread to other civilizations through Ashtahai communication networks. Refugee fleets from species that had lost their homeworlds to Devourer attacks began arriving at the edge of human space seeking protection. Amanda faced the challenge of deciding who to help and how to expand the quantum defense systems to protect entire interstellar regions. Windrunner supported Amanda's decision to offer sanctuary to any civilization willing to contribute to the common defense. The quantum protection technology was shared freely with species that proved they could adapt to multidimensional existence. Within 2 years, the defensive alliance had grown from 2 species to more than 20. The woman Jake Bennett had once considered a failure because she could not bear children had become the mother of a new form of interspecies civilization. Her quantum commonwealth protected millions of worlds and billions of lives from a cosmic threat that had consumed countless other galaxies. Amanda stood on the observation deck of her dimensional palace watching stars that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. She could see across 17 different versions of the same galaxy, each containing slight variations in planetary positions and stellar formations. In all of them, the quantum protection networks glowed with the soft light of crystalline power that kept entire worlds safe from the hungry darkness between realities. 5 years had passed since Amanda Walsh Starwhisper first stepped through the quantum gateway that changed her life forever. Now she stood in the crystal throne hall of New Terra, wearing robes that shifted between the deep blue of Earth's oceans and the silver light of Ashtahai stars. The crown on her head contained fragments from 17 different realities, marking her authority over the human Ashtahai quantum commonwealth. The throne room existed simultaneously in normal space, and the quantum realm allowing visitors from both dimensions to attend court together. Human diplomats in formal dress sat beside Ashtahai nobles whose manes flickered with patterns of living light. Representatives from 23 different species had gathered to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the alliance that had saved their civilizations from extinction. "Your Imperial Majesty," announced Chancellor Davis, who had once served as Dr. Field's research assistant before becoming Amanda's chief administrator. "The annual census reports are ready for your review. The Commonwealth now protects 412 inhabited worlds across 17 star systems." Amanda accepted the quantum data crystal that contained detailed information about every world under her protection. Her enhanced consciousness could process the massive amount of data in seconds, revealing population statistics, economic reports, and security assessments for billions of citizens. The responsibility was enormous, but she had grown into the role through necessity and determination. Windrunner approached the throne, moving with the fluid grace that marked all Ashtahai nobles. Despite his vast age and power, he had chosen to serve as Amanda's advisor and partner, rather than demanding equal authority. Their bond transcended the political alliance between their species, becoming something deeper than either had expected. "The outer perimeter scouts report no Devourer activity in our protected zones," Windrunner informed her through their quantum link. "However, refugee fleets from the Andromeda Spiral continue to arrive seeking sanctuary. They bring reports that the Devourers have consumed 3/4 of that galaxy." Amanda felt a chill of fear despite the success of their defensive strategies. The quantum protection systems had proven effective at hiding protected worlds from Devourer detection, but they could not stop the entities from consuming unprotected civilizations. Entire galaxies were still falling to the cosmic plague, while the Commonwealth remained safe in its multidimensional hiding places. "We need to expand our protection networks," Amanda decided. "The quantum anchor technology has proven stable enough for galactic deployment. It is time to offer shelter to entire star clusters instead of just individual worlds." The decision would require massive resources and careful coordination across multiple species. However, Amanda had learned that ambitious goals often succeeded, where cautious plans failed. The Commonwealth had grown from a desperate alliance into a thriving civilization by attempting things that conventional wisdom considered impossible. General Bennett entered the throne room wearing the uniform of the Quantum Corps with rank insignia that marked him as one of Amanda's most trusted field commanders. Jake had found purpose in protecting the empire his ex-wife had built, becoming a respected leader who trained new recruits in quantum warfare tactics. His past mistakes had been forgiven, if not forgotten. "Your Majesty," Jake said with a formal bow that contained genuine respect rather than mere protocol. "The new quantum anchor stations are ready for deployment. My teams have identified suitable locations in the Sagittarius Arm where we can establish protection zones for refugee populations." Amanda studied the tactical displays that Jake projected into the air above the throne. His military expertise had proven invaluable in planning defensive strategies that kept Commonwealth forces safe while expanding their area of protection. The man who had once been too proud to value her contributions now served her vision without question or complaint. "Begin Phase 1 deployment immediately," Amanda ordered. "However, maintain strict security protocols. We cannot allow the Devourers to discover our expansion methods, or they will adapt their tactics accordingly." Dr. Field approached with his latest research reports about quantum technology applications. His teams had developed methods for protecting entire solar systems by placing their stars in controlled superposition states. The process was dangerous and required perfect coordination, but it could make stellar nurseries invisible to Devourer detection systems. "The stellar phase shift experiments have exceeded all expectations," Dr. Field reported. "We can now hide complete star formation regions, allowing new civilizations to develop in safety. The protected zones will appear as empty space to any external observers, including Devourer scouts." Amanda approved the expansion of stellar protection experiments while maintaining careful oversight of the dangerous research. The power they were manipulating could reshape galactic structure if misused. However, the alternative was watching, helplessly as the Devourers consumed every star system that remained in normal space. Princess Elena Ashworth of Mars arrived to present the annual tribute from the core human worlds. The ceremony was largely symbolic since the Commonwealth operated on cooperation rather than conquest. However, the formal presentations helped maintain political stability among species that had very different cultural traditions. "The United Earth Council sends greetings to their beloved Empress," Princess Elena announced. "The core worlds remain eternally grateful for the protection and prosperity that your leadership has brought to humanity." Amanda accepted the ceremonial gifts while reflecting on how much had changed since her humiliation in the colony square. The woman who had been traded for buffalo meat now received tribute from the governments of entire worlds. However, the memory of that degradation still motivated her to ensure that no person under her protection would ever be discarded as worthless. The afternoon court session included reports from exploration teams that were mapping uncharted regions of quantum space. These expeditions had discovered that reality contained far more layers than previously suspected. Some dimensions contained civilizations that had successfully hidden from Devourers for millions of years, using techniques the Commonwealth could adapt. Amanda's consciousness existed across multiple reality layers, simultaneously allowing her to coordinate exploration missions that operated in 17 different dimensions. The mental strain was manageable now thanks to Ashtahai neural enhancement techniques that had expanded her brain's processing capacity beyond normal human limits. As evening approached, Amanda dismissed the formal court and retired to her private quarters with Windrunner. Their relationship had evolved beyond political partnership into something that transcended species boundaries. They shared thoughts, emotions, and experiences through quantum entanglement that created a bond deeper than anything possible between beings limited to single realities. "Do you ever regret the path that brought you here?" Windrunner asked as they stood on the balcony overlooking New Terra's capital city. Below them, humans and Ashtahai walked the same streets, while ships from dozens of species filled the harbor that existed in folded space. Amanda considered the question while watching children from multiple species playing together in parks that phased between dimensions. "I regret the pain Jake caused me. but not the journey it started. Being traded away like property was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was also the event that led to everything good in my life. The irony was not lost on her that Jake's cruelest act had ultimately saved both their species from extinction. His decision to trade her for meat had put her in position to discover the quantum crystals and make contact with the Ashtahai. Without that humiliation, she might never have developed the abilities that made her uniquely suited to bridge the gap between realities. The woman he discarded has become the mother of a new form of civilization, Windrunner observed. Your children are not biological offspring but entire worlds filled with beings who live in freedom because of your protection. Amanda smiled at her companion's wisdom while calculating the resources needed for the next phase of Commonwealth expansion. Tomorrow she would begin implementing plans to protect entire galactic regions from devourer attacks. The refugee fleets, arriving from consumed galaxies, brought knowledge and technology that could enhance their defensive capabilities. The abandoned wife had become an empress whose empire spanned multiple realities and whose protection extended to billions of lives across dozens of species. She had proven that true worth could not be measured by others' limited expectations, and that sometimes losing everything was the first step toward gaining the universe. As the 3 moons of New Terra rose over a city that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, Amanda Walsh Starwhisper prepared for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that the girl who had once been considered worthless had become the guardian of all the worlds that mattered.